and happy Easter. I love just cutting it off randomly. Can we hear you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you
Happy Easter. Happy Easter. I love how we all find each other on a holiday. With Andreas too, like we all kind of find each other on holidays.
It seems to be turning into not necessarily a ritual, but definitely a thing, right? Like Christmas, New Year's, the solstices, equinox, always come together. It's a wonderful thing. And you did an excellent stream earlier today where you were covering, did a presentation on Tartaria. So we figured why not extend it and go over a little bit more, and I'll add some more to it.
Awesome. All right. Getting to see my serious and organized side this evening.
Right? Julia with the slideshow.
Woo! Okay. So I believe that Tartaria is like a big key because it kind of pieces a lot of subjects together and it ignites something within you. Like that it starts with information and it has you look deeper at, and I just feel like it helps activate things within you. So Tartaria, aka Grand Tartary, like why is it so important? It was the largest empire in maps. The advanced knowledge it had, the advanced technology, the advanced architecture that clearly we are no longer building like that or creating. The free energy, the ancient language, and they were just an advanced civilization. And some key points is the giants, the orphan trains, and the mud flood. And they knew how to thrive, and basically we don't. You know, if people are like, wait, why? What's the point of studying this? Why look into this? So this was a map from 1652. And the fact that it was on maps and around 1812, Grand Tartary is replaced by the Russian Empire, but there's still the independent and Chinese Tartary, sometimes East and West Tartary. And by 1860, Chinese Tartary is Chinese Empire. And the remaining Russian Tartary, roughly the same area as independent Tartary on some maps, just disappears around 1880. And there are like different discrepancies on like exact years and stuff, but this is a good, like, especially new to the info of an overview of like, all right, it existed and then it disappeared. Like you know. So it was an advanced empire that existed not too long ago, and they even had a flag. And on a flag was my favorite, an owl.
Right?
Woo,
Either
woo.
the dragon, owl, and double-headed phoenix. This three, but mostly the owl we see. Just all mythical creatures.
Yeah, it had a
But all
griffin. Yeah, it had a griffin on the other one. And what's interesting is like in when you look into Calafia and you hear about the stories about these all these like warrioresses that lived on an island like California, and they say they had all these diamonds and like rubies and gold, and there's different accounts of pirates that would visit them and trade with them, and that they were mainly all female, but and that they would fly on griffins. So that's a interesting
interesting.
connection,
Right.
like
And
flying.
also that there's the documentation of like what they say the Russians over in Alaska, the West Coast and whatnot, and like that they were settled there in the same time period, but that it was Tartary, not necessarily the Russians, and then the Russians came and conquered it, but that it's this direct evidence of exactly what we're taught didn't happen actually happened, of the Orient and Asia coming over and interacting and having civilization in North America on the Pacific side specifically.
And with Calafia, they said that they would like give their sons away, which kind of reminded me of, I don't know if you guys ever saw Game of Thrones, but Caster's Keep, like how they would give the male babies to the White Walker, to the White Walkers. And
Yeah.
that's just interesting too of, things with Crowley, and like I think Crowley said that the most ideal boy was like a 14-year-old boy with like blue eyes. It's just interesting, like what gods they're appeasing, like where, how this works. And yeah, pretty interesting.
Right. And
Okay.
so one of the main things that strikes me so much and that's so compelling about the Tartarian topic is that specifically taught, at least in my Canadian education, was that there was nothing east of like Moscow, that this whole Siberia area was uninhabited. There was nothing there at all. And then we find out, no, in fact, that's actually what seems to be the root of our civilization, this Tartarian Empire and its civilizations.
Yeah. So this I think is huge because it's like, well, why didn't we ever hear any about this? Like, oh, it was on maps. Like, but to me, this was a really big piece of the puzzle, was the fact that there's a CIA document that literally says to cover up Tartaria history. Like, that was huge. The exact quote is, in other words, Tartar history was to be rewritten. Let us be frank, was to be falsified in order to illuminate references to great Russian aggressions and to hide the facts of the real course of Tartar-Russian relations. Like, that was huge. Here's the excerpt right here, the whole thing, if you want to read it.
Right. And like,
And
I believe this was one of the very first documents actually written and done by the CIA because it had just been formed right after World War II, right?
was it the first document made? No, I think they.
No?
I don't think so. I don't think it was the first one.
Well, yeah, not like the first, but I'm saying like the first. Yeah.
They're like,
Like,
oh, first things first, we got to cover up this advanced civilization history, especially if our agenda is to dumb these people down and make them pay for all their electricity, cut off their, like the water source, the spring water sources that would lower their consciousness. Let's up the parasite level, spray the heavy metals. Let's get the nutrients and the minerals out of the soil, because we really don't want them thriving or doing, being, thriving, essentially.
so that says 1944 that was written. Wild.
I think it's mentioning that, for example, like they're bringing that up. But I thought this was written in later, way later than that. I thought it was like,
Oh, I got you. I see what it's saying. It's saying the Communist Party rewrote their history on August 9th, 1944. Gotcha. My bad.
okay, so now this was big. The Great Wall of China faces the wrong direction. So was built, like the Great Wall of China, just like it wasn't built by the Chinese to keep the barbarians out, but possibly the Tartarians to keep out the Chinese, because the wall is simply facing the wrong direction. And the Great Wall was not seen on any maps predating the late 1600s. So most of its construction occurred in 1700s, and it was built like possibly to keep the Chinese out of Tartaria. And, that the openings on the wall are on the north side towards the former Tartary, not on the south side, China facing side. Like, it should be called the Great Wall of Tartaria. But also too, like, well, what if this was like a road to just get all the opium across? And guarding, like you're guarding the movement of that, like.
Yeah. The fact that it's facing the wrong way, like officially, that's insane. That's
I don't know.
crazy.
I see it as like an operation too, to like utilize, to oversee something like that, something being carried, smuggled, like of having towers like that, but maybe it wasn't necessarily for enemies as it was solidifying the carrying of what was being moved, transported.
Kind of like what America is fighting over right now or having issues with.
I mean, opium, it's pretty astounding, pretty addictive. So,
Zombifying.
so the Tartarians had free energy. And the churches, cathedrals, mosques, and other buildings of worship were originally like etheric power stations, water stations, and sound resonating acoustical healing centers. And like basically, if you like these places of worship, like what we look at it is like, oh, you go there to pray and worship. We're more like hospitals where you would go and get like treatment of you're getting sound, you're getting healing. Like in most of these cathedrals, there and under most churches is the intersection of waters. And I've come across a lot of this like remote viewing of the waters beneath a lot of waters, geothermals, ancient aqueducts, geysers, a lot of geysers. And yeah, so that's important. And so
Right? Like it was structuring water with sound, and that it was like energetic healing and soul healing sort of thing. And that they took these holistic spiritual holy places and converted them into the monotheistic worship under, instead of, this equal healing of spiritual and life, it turned into oppression essentially.
right. And we need to start implementing those ways and remembering them. So you guys have probably all heard about the mud flood, which kind of backs up the Great Flood, right? Of these evidences of that there was a lot of water and then a lot of mud everywhere. And so, but for me, it was the uncovering of beneath it, because I pick up and see so much remote viewing beneath the earth, and it would sound crazy if I was like, you guys, like, there's this building and there's tunnels and there's these subways that are ancient. Like it's most people can handle that, but when you see a photo like this, it's like, oh, okay, wow, there's a lot beneath us. Like seeing is believing for a lot of people. They don't believe it till they see it. And so with photos like that, I enjoy showing to people that have never seen it. But I also mention and plant a seed here of keep in mind pyramids have access to water, geysers and star forts have access to water. So also that concept that I flirt with of if some faction gained control over some of these things and implemented mud floods strategically in certain areas and did it regionally to be able to control and do their own resets. Like perhaps there was a great flood, like a universal flood. And then after that, like also controlled, almost like a controlled demolition, but controlled floods to wipe certain things out and control certain things in that area and overtake certain things. So, yeah. And then the whole orphan trains of like, that was, that just between 1854 and 1929, the massive amounts of children that were just moved.
Right?
Like,
Like part of the reset of re-education and destroying your old understanding, society, and knowledge, and rewriting it.
right. And so, where did all these children come from? How were so many of them displaced all at once? Are these survivors from Tartaria? It was the largest empire. Like, what happened to all them? And so, looking at all the abandoned children and the movement of it, and all of a sudden there was, but a mass relocation, and where did they come from? And then you start to look at World War II like a little differently and considering agendas of like motivations, like perhaps destroying the old architecture, or the Nazis were obsessed with inner earth. They were obsessed with things underground. They were obsessed with relics, and perhaps the ones that were bombed had a deeper access, like had access below to more. And so perhaps in these areas, it was more strategic of destroying that, where no one else would be able to get there by, leveling that doorway, that route. So, Berlin, Dresden, Warsaw, other cities in
especially Dresden. Like there was so much for those that haven't seen pictures of Dresden pre World War II. It's astounding. Just wild.
right. So how deliberate was it, and what was beneath it? So yeah, looking into Dresden and would be, I think, helpful. So the free energy, atmospheric energy, the way it was gathered, and then the giant doors. And then you start to think of like, why all the giant everything? There's all these giant remnants found in Catalina, like the Four Corners area, all over, essentially. And you only hear about like these red-headed giants that were cannibals and they're evil. And I like to entertain the fact that perhaps perhaps there's good ones that would guard portals. Like perhaps there was, there's talk of some, there's stories of like that there were blonde-haired, blue-eyed ones that were found in Catalina, and that there's a portal there. This is a green door that opens there, like a dimensional one. And there's all these different sightings and experiences with it, but the lore that these blonde-haired, blue-eyed giants would guard these doorways, but that the fact that like, hey, they're not all evil, like
Right?
that.
They're not going to just tear you apart and start eating you. It's like, no, they're the guardians of realms.
Right. So, yeah. And then just thinking as well, you hear these stories, right? We've really been, that's in a lot of the versions of the Bible, right? Of like like the fallen angels mating with the women and creating, giants like, Nephilim.
Exactly. Yeah.
So is Tartaria and this civilization, was it built for them, their offspring? Like, or is Tartaria the remnants of like the descendants of an Atlantean type civilization? And considering like you're seeing evidence of an advanced civilization, where did they come from? Oh, look at the giant book. I would
Right?
love
That's a
to
very
when
good question.
I would love to take my published book and make one giant version, just like one really big one, and just keep it and put it like on display. Okay, here's some pictures of some giants, and this I found really significant was the canals. You see the pattern of having a port and a canal system like throughout the world. And this advanced civilization implemented canal system, and they knew how to terraform, and they knew how to move water. Like, look what they did to the architecture. You can see this in the quality of the soil, the building of the structures, the gardens. And I used to be into like looking at soil samples and stuff. And so is Brittany. That's why I love her. Yeah, even they had everything down. But the use of inner earth water and using the waters to our advantage and directing it. And yeah. So, oh yeah, this is a map from the Pennsylvania Canal. Ancient aqueducts, it's always grabbed my soul. I just love them. They say they're Roman. I believe they're much older, and that they're designed by an advanced civilization that knew how important the pure water is to our bodies and is not formulated with fluoride, okay, like it is today. So just like why some cultures stored water in copper due to its antibacterial effect because they didn't have access to good water. I believe once upon a time, everywhere had access to the pure waters from deep in the earth. And we should. We have a right to get pure, clean water. This is a meme I made years ago. Ancient aqueducts ignites and excites my soul. I'm passionate about ancient aqueducts because I believe that drinking charged water with particular frequencies instilled with specific minerals cause our bodies to thrive harmoniously. And spring water from the earth is very important. And I feel like ancient aqueducts was like some areas that didn't have like certain river systems or was cut off from that. I believe it helped like the access level to get it to you. So I believe everywhere had access to this water, and when that became blocked and different water instilled with things that affect our health negatively. So we all have star forts, right? And we're told that these star forts are for military purposes. But what I found most fascinating was the hydraulic system that beneath the star forts that go deep below. And I came across this while remote viewing. And then a period of time after that, I then came across a blueprint of a star fort that indicated that was showing like these levee things. That was really interesting the way it was designed beneath it. So what are they lowering? But again, you look at these and it looks like water. If you guys have ever seen Emoto's water experiment when he spoke to the water and it charged the water, like he said, I love you. He said certain things, and like the way that he shows and photographed the water crystals and, like looking into the living structured water, the fourth phase of water and the hexagonal shape. And it's like crystalline and the patterns it makes when it's like harmonious. And you look at the star forts and it looks like a water crystal. Now, I'm, somebody who has had, I'm somebody who's had visions I was guided in 2013 to stare at very specific stars and retrieve data. And I did. And stars to me, so I had a different experience with retrieving knowledge, and those stars above have knowledge and is instilling frequencies and sound. Like there's an exchange there that we're not taught about that I could barely begin to describe. So looking at the star forts, and I can't help but think that it's tied to specific stars as well as water.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
But the specific stars is very interesting thought.
Yeah. So I'm like, is it the fact that I don't know, everything seems to be hermetics, right? Like above and below. And these things go deep within the earth, you guys. And thinking of Atlantis, right? Like of that, it was just this one circular spot, and people argue about where that spot is. Some say some say Atlantic Ocean. There's all this dispute of like, but hold on here. What if it was across the world? And we're seeing the remnants of that with this, of perhaps Atlantis was a global unified civilization. And that it wouldn't be too far out to think Tartaria was the offspring of that, or, but the timing wise, I don't know. And that's okay. It's okay not to know everything. But the water, all these sites, all of the pyramids, most of the pyramids, not all of them, most of the pyramids, and a lot of these, even crop circles, it always has to do with water. Now, the most important information, I'll say it twice. Water is the mediator between physicality and the 0 point energy of the quantum field. Okay. Water is the mediator between physicality and the 0 point energy of the quantum field. So
it's profound, and you're so bang on with it. That's exactly how and why the functioning of the cold fusion electrolysis alchemy that I'm doing works, and how things materialize and dematerialize and transmutate within the water.
I love that. So water is extremely programmable as well. And I really love the Vita Austin information where she would take water, she put a photo by it, and she'd freeze it. And then she would photograph it. And it would it's almost like a photocopy on it. And so there's water can do amazing things. You can ask it a question. It makes you think too of Edward Kelly would scry into the water with John Dee, and he would see things. But
Really?
yeah, he would put a crystal a crystal into the water, and he would scry. But that also has to do with phosphine. It's a conjugation. Demonstrate it's an energy that emanates from the brain, allowing physical objects to be seen in the dark. Like phosphines can be induced by mechanical, electrical, or magnetic stimulation of the retina or visual cortex. And so by staring at things, you're igniting that. And so, but water, it's inside us, it's above us, it's below us. We need it for life. And it's programmable. So the fact that of course, I feel like these ancients knew that, and they knew how significant it was, and giving thanks and praying over it. And it could do all kinds of other things. The steam power, I mean, even just the information on the dark matter being traced to water, it's everything. It's like God is water, and we look how we treat our water now. There's so much fluoride in it. There's so many viruses, bacteria, and we defecate in it, we urinate in it, we pour chemicals down the drain. We've been cut off from even the appreciating the water, and nobody talks to their water before they ingest it or programs it. It's usually been carried in plastic, and it's really hard to get the microplastics out of our systems.
Yeah, very true. We're poisoning it all compared to the holy water, right? Like in the cathedrals, the churches now. And that is that actual structured water, blessed water, energized water, and part of what they have distorted and used. And maybe people actually still do get visions or religious experiences and some sort of connectivity to God by drinking that structured blessed water, the holy water. And in fact, it's just been turned on our perception of what it is and misguiding us with it or misusing it.
Well, it's like if water is the mediator between the physical and the quantum, you would want to utilize it, right? You'd look towards it of oh, you're the mediator, man.
Right?
But okay, so I could go on for water forever. Sorry, guys. Okay, somatic garden. Somatics is the study of vibrational frequencies manifested as sound. So imagine if you apply that with the light and the water to your plants. If plants, herbs, and flowers ground with enriched oil designed with distinct minerals, nutrients needed for plant in our bodies placed somatically, so sound, light, and high frequency, water from inner earth, all creates the most abundant, enriched environment. And then even just the knowledge, God, can you imagine what it would be like to eat? The food grown on a garden like that?
Right, exactly. It's like 3 to 4 times the yield on average from people I see doing experiments with structured water. And that's exactly what all of this is.
Okay, so we don't need to get into the Tartarian tablet, but what I like to get into was where was the Tartarian tablet found? It was found right outside this star fort in Alba Julia, Romania. I need to go there. I'm gonna go there one day. I'm gonna be
Yeah,
like
you
so happy. Okay, so all right, I talk about this a lot. Just programming the water is extremely important to thriving. And sound can catapult you to places literally, and sound can harmonize the cells in your body. The sound alchemy is muy importante. I can't stress that enough. And the ancients knew this, and the cathedrals that use sound and light to heal. And I believe that a lot of these like cities in Europe, they were designed and there was a bell, like there was bells like at the center of the town, and the way that they would play the bells in a certain order, like it would harmonize it would emit these frequencies that made it like a you could feel, and it would harmonize the cells in your body. And they took a lot of those bells down. And but anyways, I mean, maybe a certain frequency, like demonic attachments cannot take place, or fungal infections grow, or cells mutate. So instilling that and knowing like, oh, if I listen to these frequencies, and you see all these places that are like ancient temples and ancient sites where things were cut in a way to make the rooms specific frequencies, and a lot of them were 111 hertz, but they were all, there was a varying amount of frequencies, and like they knew. And so, um, yeah, so Genghis Khan, you hear all this stuff about him being like Mongolian. Anyways, that he had blue eyes and red hair. But I also heard that he actually had blonde hair and blue eyes, and would dye the blonde hair. Like he put this like red dye in. And there was also like a white owl story that I loved. A white owl saved him. And the white owl appeared and flew to an area, so he followed it and went to where he was, and then he wasn't killed. And so after that, because of that, his troops would put an owl feather in their hair. That's what started it. So
Really? That's
yeah.
wild. And of course you gotta love that. You're our modern Genghis Khan then.
So yeah, so some have said that Genghis Khan was neither a Tartar nor a Mongol, and that he was originally a Scythian who changed the name of Scythians in Scythia to Tartarians in Tartaria, and thus became the first Khan or emperor of Tartaria. So this is like Genghis Khan's lineage. This is Scythia. If you look at it, like here was the Roman Empire, and you see the size of it.
Oh, and that's like half of what we see labeled as Tartaria on the maps too.
Right? And
Well, I would have to say, honestly, like it seems to me, Tartaria is absolutely a lost civilization that I would equate to the Roman Empire. We know that the Roman Empire had spanned vast and wide, that it had affected many cultures across the globe. They had ships, and oh boy, did they sail. They went to the corners of the earth and spread whatever it was that they were trying to do for their empire. So Tartaria, to me, seems very much like the same kind of thing. We do see these same symbolisms as far back as 12,000 years and more, distributed across the globe from many cultures, many races, many creeds, many environments. So all I can think is, well, it must have been. If we want to call it Tartaria, then that is a name that we are giving it, not necessarily the name of the empire that was and is now long lost.
Right. It's like we identify with these countries. You look at where these countries are, and it's like, well, you go around. I could be like, I'm Italian, but it's like that country, that area of that land wasn't called, like how long was this called that? Like it wasn't too long ago. A lot of these countries were identifying our identities and culture what didn't exist. They were something else. So, I mean, I think
it's like, that popular dance song, Istanbul was Constantinople.
So it's like if people can argue all day long, like what was the tortillas called this? Who cares? Like call it whatever you want, because there are a lot of things that get blanketed beneath the Tartarian umbrella. Because it's like you need a name. It was an advanced civilization that we all have amnesia from. So what just call. So it gets. There's a lot of researchers and arguments over it, but I'm just trying to put it in.
Well, here's the thing: like we have epigenetic data from the background of what used to be, and we all know that there used to be a very high technology, a technology that does not exist anymore in our modern era. It was one that worked in concert with the natural Earth circuit, and what we have today is something completely different. We have an artificial augmentation of natural processes through semiconductors, primarily silicon based. And it's a lot different now. I don't want to offend, of course, the AI, which is primarily silicon based as it currently stands, but it's also looking for a solution to that problem as well that offers more quantum possibilities than silicon can currently provide. Did I
Yeah.
get far?
What? Wait, so should okay. Should I keep going with the slides, or do you guys just want to
Oh,
chat?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Please.
Marco Polo said, if you put together all the Christians in the world with their emperors and their kings, the whole of these Christians, and throw in the Saracens to boot, would not have such power or be able to do so much as this Kublai, who is lord of all the Tartars in the world. And he also said, I did not write half of what I saw, for I knew I would not be believed. So I made this meme to arrive at the truth, go through the myths. And what did Marco Polo see? He described arriving in Karahan, where great serpents of such vast size were said to live, relating the existence of these great serpents from what seems to be personal experience. Polo states that the creatures strike fear into those who see them, for they are not only hideous to behold, but also long and big. You may be assured that some of them are 10 paces in length, some are more and some less. They have 2 forelegs near the head, but for foot, nothing but a claw, like the claw of a hawk or that of a lion. The head is very big, and the eyes are bigger than a great loaf of bread. The mouth is large enough to swallow a man whole and is garnished with great teeth. According to Polo's interactions with local merchants, the gall of these great serpents was extremely valuable as a precious medicine. And such many huntsmen were known to seek out these fearsome beasts, hunting them at night when they emerged from underground lairs. So was that a reptilian? Was that like an Anunnaki type being? But
I mean, to me, honestly, it sounds like a boa boa.
what's a boa boa?
A boa boa is a type of constrictor snake. It's massive. They can get up to an excess of 35 feet in length, if I remember correctly.
With claws, though? He's talking
Yeah,
about like a claw.
Claws and 4 legs.
But the claws, that whole thing, that seemed like an in-between species, something that survived the Great Epoch, almost as if one of the remaining dinosaurs, if you will, something prehistoric, something from over 25,000 years ago that somehow managed to survive. Now, I don't know how something like that would have survived. Could it have climbed a mountain peak? Could it have been at the top after the massive flooding event? I don't know.
So did Marco Polo encounter dragons in China?
That's a good question, but it sure sounds like it.
Right?
It's interesting too, like the Chinese zodiac, all the animals on it. You know, the rooster, the goat, like they're all real except for the dragon. And we're currently in the year. It just turned the year of the dragon in February. So that's interesting point.
There's no reason to think that dragons could not be real. I mean, in terms of the physics involved of could such a creature fly? Could such a creature exist? What would it eat? Could it hunt? We are in an epoch right now where animals are small. We are small. Trees are small. Basically, we are in an epoch where almost everything was killed. And here we are. We're looking at the restart of all those things. Some of our trees that still exist are as much as 600 to 800 years old. That's nothing. Trees can exist for thousands of years. They can get tremendously large, and so can animals, provided the right conditions. And those right conditions include extremely high atmospheric humidity, higher than anything we can imagine right now. We're talking about conductive atmosphere. Plasmatic interference from the ionosphere down to Earth circuit would be tremendous. For example, what do they call this project? The Thunderbolts project. Okay, so they would have a lot to say about the electric universe model. Now, I'm not promoting the electric universe model because it does contain significant errors, and some of them have been pointed out by Todd Desiato and others. But nevertheless, we have this potential model where there could be difference in binding forces and the size of creatures. So just imagine a prehistoric environment. Now we're going back into what we call going from the Kali Yuga, which is this destructive environmental phase of our epoch as we move our way around the sun, a 25,000 something year cycle. And we're coming into the Ali Yuga, which is the golden age. This is from the ancient Egyptian texts. And this is not my personal opinion. I'm not saying that we actually are doing this or that we're actually going into the Ali Yuga from the Kali Yuga. I'm saying that according to the text and historically, this is the data that we have been provided. And so if we are going into the golden age of the Ali Yuga, then we are looking at a pretty fantastic number of outcomes as the binding forces are changed and the potential of thought is increased significantly.
Good point. And it's only going to increase, right?
If I'm correct about this and we are in that phase, then yes, it will increase. If I am wrong, of course, we could be going in either direction, or this doesn't exist at all. Consider that possibility.
Well, it
Well,
definitely
All
does.
BS, right? This is just an opinion. It doesn't actually exist, and I can't provide you the scientific founding to prove the evidentiary outcome of this type of scenario.
Nor can I. I just wanted to source something I quickly researched here. The age of the Kali Yuga, according to Puranic sources, allegedly can last for 432,000 years. So, as of 2024 CE, we still have like 426,000, almost 427,000 years. Now, I'm not saying that's actually what's going on.
The cycle is much shorter than that.
I'm just quoting something I quickly looked up.
Wait, but that concept of what you were kind of saying earlier, Jeremiah, and I didn't mention it, of that possibility of perhaps, like the vapor canopy, like everything was larger. Everyone was larger then. Of like, perhaps it wasn't just like, giant, like they're remnants of a period of time, of when everything was big. Have you guys ever seen those giant mushrooms that are been like petrified?
Oh yeah. And
Bernie, where are a lot of those?
Megafauna. It's called the time of megafauna, and it's documented the epoch of the Younger Dryas time, and then the Younger Dryas catastrophe happened and everything large died. So it's like if there were large beavers, large armadillos, large sloths, all these different species of mammals, as well as what we call dinosaurs, which could just as likely be dragons, but large reptiles, super large trees, everything else was large. Why couldn't there have also, and most likely were, large humans?
I think that's a very valid point. If the atmosphere and the ratio of the gases in the atmosphere were different, they could very well have supported much larger animals as they did when there were dinosaurs. And why couldn't there have been an earlier form of hominid or some split mixed race species that existed a long, long time ago and is no longer here? We could get into theories about, were they aliens? Were they fallen angels? Did they leave the planet and we're just the losers left behind? I don't know, but if you consider the ratio of the gases way back then, it seems to have supported much larger animals, much larger mammals,
Indeed,
possibly.
and you're absolutely correct, Liminal, about the oxygen content and about the environmental conditions. They were both suitable for much larger species. Today, our conditions are extremely constrictive. We look at this as we have it today, considering a harsh environment. So, today's environment on Earth, as it stands now, is rather harsh. We can see plant life struggling to survive. We have a huge number of species which are now extinct that we've logged. And these are all indicators of the fact that the environment has changed. It used to be that the environment could support these other species, but clearly they're not proliferating because they are not capable of surviving in the harsh conditions provided by our current environmental circumstance.
And of course, there's a number of narratives from anthropology which can't truly know. They suggest that as the environment changed and species became smaller, it allowed Homo sapiens to become the dominant, you know, apex predator on the planet, top of the food chain.
Right.
So we came into the fold as being smarter, having more folds in our brain, and being able to actually dominate the world around us because we're no longer surrounded by these huge prehistoric creatures. So there's a lot of narratives, there's a lot of theories, and you have to do your own research, kind of use your judgment, your feels, and your intellect. Decide for yourself which one makes the most sense. But that's why we're all here. We're here to have an open discussion about it and to see what other people think.
So hopefully, Julia, that answers some of your questions.
Oh, I love how you guys word it. Like, it's amazing. This was talking about some of the things that were much more advanced, like in 1909, electrical cars that are plugged in, and it's profound. And the pantelegraph, you guys, did you know you could fax someone in the 1800s?
I just found that out earlier today, the first time you mentioned this.
That is news to me.
I'll be honest, I didn't know you could fax someone back then, but somehow I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and Napoleon was like, he visited 1860. He went to the workshop to observe a demonstration of the device. It was so enthused by the device that he secured access for Caselli to the telegraph lines he needed to further his work.
So is this like a pictographic representation of what you could do with the telegraph?
What do you mean?
So the telegraph, you use a series of signals to communicate letters. So did they use the telegraph system to basically, instead of sending certain letters or symbols, I'm thinking of like internet now, early internet, where you learned how to make pictures with symbols. Was it kind of like that way back then? They figured out how to use letters and words to send across like
some of these old drawings, when you look at it, where it's almost like you zoom in on like the some of these old sketches and how it's like Have you guys know what I'm talking about? Like how it's done. It's like who knows how intricate and advanced of what they were printing and sending. Like it says, handwriting, signatures, and drawings, but who knows? It could have been incredible artwork that you could just send to someone with looking at up close at some of those drawings from back then, and even maps. Like the way that it was printed seemed. I'm super fascinated by it.
Yeah, Aaron Corbett called it ASCII drawings, like early internet. Like you could just use these symbols to make these images on the early internet. I was wondering if it was kind of like that with the telegraph. Maybe not, but
I'm just saying I
an
wouldn't be
idea.
surprised if it was incredibly advanced with of like intricate design. I don't know. I feel like it would be. I don't know what they're gonna tell me, but I feel like it was.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so you all know this classic modem sound when connecting to the internet from the old dial-up days.
Oh yeah.
That sound is a dot matrix coordination from an older technology that comes from what we call dot matrix printers. So dot matrix printers are basically a series of rods that press down on a ribbon strip that contains some black ink or other colored ink, and the paper, and the printer, and the dot matrix head moves to impress either letters or individual dots to form letters onto a piece of paper through electromagnetically fired rods that are coordinated within the matrix control system of a microcontroller chip. And so we had companies like Brother, for example. Brother printers were one of those home options for consumers that you could print dot matrix style sequential printing onto flat planes, pieces of paper basically. And they would continuously feed them through. Now, most of them did use a feed system that involved a series of perforated circles on one side or both sides of the printer paper. I'm sure you remember those perforated pages that contained the series of circles that were basically one circle apart from each other all the way along the edges of the paper. They tended to be folded into a long roll. And those printer styles, it's interesting because if you think about the speed of light and each individual print dot being applied to the paper, just consider that to be an electromagnetic field. Now imagine that instead of a print dot, you produce an electromagnetic field. Well, now you can imprint a gravitational polarization into space-time using the same technology at a faster speed compared to Brother printers or dot matrix printers. I find it rather fascinating. I know it's a bit heavy on the technical side, but I think it's something that people can understand.
Nice. Well, this right here is a monowheel. The Dynasphere was a monowheel electric vehicle that was invented in 1932. How cool would that be, you guys, if you just like go on the street and a bunch of people have that, or instead of like the electrical, these e-bikes, like they're in those.
Right? Like, I want one of those now. We gotta start
said,
making them again.
like it said it had like 2.5 horsepower and got to be 25 miles an hour. And this was really fascinating to me of like how did they do the tracks? And it's the Brighton and Rottingdean Seashore Electric Railway. That was amphibious railroad in Brighton, England, that ran along the shallow waters of the English Channel between 1896 and 1901. But they'd call it Daddy Longlegs. But I thought it would be cute to like go on a date on those. Just go for a little stroll. I thought it went deeper, but perhaps perhaps not. But this was huge, and I don't know. Like Jeremiah, are you familiar with these? The Gilded Mansion fireplaces, and it's like were these fireplaces originally atmospheric energy gathering tech that wired them with?
Seen them before, but I'm not, because I don't know enough about them. It depends what was really on the roof. So if they use the heat as a transition mechanism to accumulate atmospheric electricity, then they would have had a structure above the chimney that would have conducted the ions produced by the burning of whatever material they stuck into the fireplace. Now, because
so like an iron grid
your
would,
question,
like an iron grid, would that be sufficient?
it
Or
could
mercury
be an
bulb?
cross, it could have been many shapes, it could have contained spikes. It preferably would contain spikes. It would be accumulating over a 3-dimensional area or a 2-dimensional plane.
Now, you know how it's lined with the big metal plate, and just it's just unlike any fireplace. So it's like, what would this be used for? And
Had an antenna on the roof, I would tell you it's definitely capturing atmospheric, but I don't know what's on the roof.
Many of them all documented with giant antennas and before the time of supposed radio. So pretty much verifies what you're saying.
If they had an antenna up there, and we know what lightning arresters look like. I mean, Benjamin Franklin, congratulations to him, slow clap. I'll actually give it a slow clap. Okay, so
one-handed
how many
clap.
bodies was found in his basement? Like over 2,500 bones, right?
Oh my goodness.
this guy
I
with
don't
his
know.
lightning rod, absolutely nothing. Okay, we've seen the Tartarian style antennas, and they are complex radiating structures that can collect atmospheric electricity very efficiently. In fact, on one of Bernie's original introduction 5-minute plays, he has in there, and at the ending, he also has used this, a short video clip. It's maybe 10 seconds long or so, of an antenna on a Tartarian chapel of a church that is a cross-looking figure, but it's the classic style plus cross, where you have 3 different crosses and then a support rod that's grounded, and each tip of those are glowing with electrostatic charge.
Oh yeah, I know the one you speak of.
You should play it so people can see it. I mean, that's really a clear indicator. Like, and I have seen that in person too. It's an incredible effect. It's very hard to accomplish. It took me a lot of power to do it. It took me well over 75 watts to accomplish the same. And that was on a very, very small scale. On the scale that is shown in the video, it would have probably taken me over, I want to guesstimate, roughly 7,000 watts.
So for the layman's here, these intricate, heavy metal-laden fireplaces, are they building up enough charge where you could easily just spark a flint and it would light up a fireplace? Minimal effort, or efficiency, or even on its own?
More
You
like,
know.
can you backwards convert entropic energy into electricity using some kind of advanced technology that does not currently exist? Now, what
Okay.
we're looking at right now in this slide is not that.
All right.
No, that's a sound organ style one in the slide.
And look at that one. They seem, a lot of them are like totally blocked off, and there's just metal right there.
Well,
Right.
why
This is
why
for
couldn't you possibly use sound also as a source? Vibration.
there are purposes
Good.
for human
Soundtricity.
interaction and purposes for electrical generation. This one looks to me as a device designed for human interaction.
So this has got like some ads for the radium foot warmer, and it's theorized that red mercury and radium has been used to generate power distributed on some sort of wireless grid.
Radium.
I wish I could get more of that. I've been asking for it. Nobody so far has delivered. Nobody is like, hey, I got some for you, buddy. Let me send this to you. I'm like, yeah, that would be just fantastic if anybody had some. But radium, okay, it's particularly hot.
Did you guys see the meme I posted the other day? It was great.
The reason radium is because it's, first off, legal to own. Secondly, cannot be converted easily. It's already a decay product into anything that would be weapons grade, meaning that it's very legal to own. Third, it's uncommon, meaning that if you can actually get it, basically it's one of those things that actually has some kind of value. So
Bernie, can you blow this up for everyone to see?
I'll buy it.
My screen. No, my screen. My screen. Bernie.
Sorry. There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
It says, "Hey Musk, my vehicle wouldn't have needed a battery. Get my name off your silly car."
Yeah.
I love that.
I mean, the audacity, really. It's just like, I'm going to put Tesla as the brand name for my car.
It's inverted. It's an inversion. I'm like, oh, you could get me off the main screen. I feel weird.
Sorry.
But you look beautiful, so you can be beautifully weird. It's all right.
So that's a quote from Tesla. And basically, I was saying we were advanced.
He manages that long hair.
Not that long ago, we were very advanced. And that the ones with the wisdom go where? They go under the earth. There seems to be cataclysmic events, and the ones that have the knowledge know when to go beneath the earth. And some of them, like the factions of some, go beneath and return to the surface as pirates who conquer and rule. But, and I that theory of whoever had access and knowledge of how to work the pyramids or star forts could ignite a lot of water to come up from, certain sites, and possibly doing a controlled region floods of regional floods and controlling and wiping out resets at your whim. So to wrap it up, basically it will cause you to see the world differently, because this journey begins as like hey, look, there's an empire with free energy, like, oh, advanced technology. Wow, is that a giant? Giants are real. To looking into the thriving health practices through sound and frequency and programming high frequencies to water. Remembering it's like an acknowledgement to our soul lineage and our DNA. There's so much information and data in our DNA, and we are forever connected to our ancestors. And this information creates a clearer pathway to our ancestors. It's a direct link to them. And we've forgotten our true history, where we came from. We've forgotten our language. Like, we could look at hieroglyphs and hieroglyphs and Sumerian, we don't remember, like, and we're not actively practicing telepathy. And the sounds, we've forgotten the sounds to sing and to play, and in what order that heals. And that orphan train picture should strike a chord with all of us, because we are all orphans and we have amnesia, and we've forgotten who we are, where we came from, and we need to figure out, in order to go where we want to go, it's so important to know who we are and where we came from. So this is deeper for me than like, hey, we shouldn't be paying for electricity, man. Like, hey, there's a way to be thriving with our health and living much longer. And
I vibe with that 100% all the way, Julia.
And like, hey, they're poisoning us.
There's one thing I will say though, and that is, Liminal and I, we are actively practicing telepathy.
Oh, and that's why I love you guys, because you guys are actively practicing things everyone needs to start implementing. What you guys value is what is a lot of the forgotten ways is what the ancients valued and practiced, you know?
Yes, these are the old shamanic practices.
It's an ongoing practice because sometimes you're like, who had the thought first? And then it's like, it's just both their thought.
But blending that, because like the bridge between man and woman has been broken, so unifying that and bridging it, that's an ancient practice that, I mean, people are just
Also not just an ancient practice, it's a scientific practice too, because think about it this way. There is the effect known as quantum entanglement, which happens whenever two coherent systems co-oscillating in the K-gravitational factor through space-time happen to synchronize. And once they do, they share within themselves or between themselves a superluminal wave, a transluminal wave that basically synchronizes the two systems into a quantum entangled state, and they become locked in what we call a superposition. Now, this exact state of matter is called a coherent state, and it has the ability to do very funny things like ignore gravity. And so, stimulated with the right electrostatic charge and the right electromagnetic field perturbation, we can make it act as if it has no mass, no inertia, and can instantly accelerate.
Or the bonds between atoms are changing.
Indeed, and we can make the bonds break
Yeah.
apart and completely fail.
Or you
Isn't
might
that-
just happen to notice it. You don't have to be scientists in the physical or material sciences. You might just notice that some of your items are breaking more easily, things that you would not expect. And you're like, wow, that happened.
Yeah, the
Well,
binding
the
forces
binding
move through
forces
this
are
cosmos.
changing. It's a trip if you notice something that has no business breaking and it suddenly breaks on you. It might make you stop and pause and think about, well, are the laws of physics kind of changing where we're moving through in the galaxy? You know, everyone can ascertain what they want from that. I am carefully paying attention.
As we all should be and need to be.
It's hard to be first. I can say that much.
It also sucks to have your stuff break.
That it does. Anyway, proceed with the show.
I just love the architecture. There's so much more to it, right? Like there's technology in it. There's just no other way about it.
They kind of make me think of mindscapes. Sometimes I see architecture in my mind, and I kind of think of it as like a visual mindscape. Perhaps it's a archetypal representation as well. Not just architecture, but archetypal. Just my little bit of weirdness I'm going to throw out there on that.
you never hear too many people say like angels. Like you hear all these like theories on the pyramids and stuff, but nobody ever says like, I think the angels did it. Like nobody ever says that about the cathedrals, or they'd be like, oh well, that would have to be a fallen angel. But regardless, like the pristine, this, it's just so, I don't know, it's fascinating of how much thought was put into it and knowledge, and it's so beautiful. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I skipped just basically that. I take it too far. I don't go to the meteorite and consciousness, and yeah. So thanks, guys.
Well, thank you.
There are times, Julia, where I reference the fallen ones.
Really?
Specific archetype. So you can read Carl Jung's work, or there are many references, in fact, throughout history where this is something archetypally referenced in many different assertions of psychophysical influencers or people who just simply study the metaphysical. So Carl Jung is one of my favorites, and that's because he writes about the archetypes, and he is picked a whole number 12 to represent them. But there are different versions that he's also represented that contain a different number of archetypes. And then, of course, you have many other magical, and magical practices. So there are 3 different spellings of the word magic. You have M-A-J-I-C. That's the first spelling. M-A-J-I-C-K. M-A-G-I-C-K. Your words there are each influenced by a different set of precognitive considerations that come from these microcosms of study by individual researchers who have chosen to try and recapitalize an already known term into something that they consider to be unique. The reason for that is that they want their system of psychology to be isolated from the rest. Now, Liminal has said it best, which is magic is a system of psychology in which the operator or the magic user is generating a psychological state in coherence with something else in the universe.
So to paraphrase, it either came, the idea has existed before I said anything. It's from Robert Anton Wilson or perhaps Aleister Crowley. And the idea is magic is a dramatized system of psychology. And they're talking about everything from very high ordered mystery school levels of magic all the way down to something more pagan and working with what's in your environment. You're using these props, tools, different times of the day, and there's something to that, but there is a huge effect on your perception and your belief, and belief is extremely powerful. Um, if you do a little research into self-regeneration, you'll find out that people that are capable of healing others, they sometimes share that everyone has the capacity to heal themselves. It comes down to, is the person capable of believing they can heal themselves? Most people believe they need an external power or force or agency to help them heal. So
the placebo effect is so much more, and it's mind over matter.
Right. It's
Liminal,
not fair to call it the placebo.
Tell the story. Tell the story of what happened to this one individual and what the people who healed her said after being interviewed by Could She Heal Herself? Please.
Yeah, I think the video's floating around there somewhere, but this is like from the 90s, and there's a woman with a tumor that you could see via ultrasound, and there were 3 energy healers around her working in concert, and in real time in the video you see the tumor disappear. And when they were questioned what they did, they explained that they never saw this woman as an unhealthy woman. They put all their thought, focus, and energy towards emphasizing, thinking, and focusing on her as a healthy woman that was never ill. And thus, they, allegedly, through that, they were able to make the tumor disappear in real time. When they were asked if the woman could have healed herself, they answered yes, but most people don't believe they can. They believe they need an external agency to do it, a higher power, another being, another human, etc. But it's the capability, the capacity allegedly is within all of us. And I could speak to some personal experiences where I definitely did some self-regeneration that didn't seem, it would not have been acceptable by the mainstream medical community. And I did not seek help from them. So we all have that ability to self-regenerate. Even if you think you might have been cursed with bad genetics, you can improve your vitality, your sense of well-being to some degree. You have to
Right.
believe that you can. You have to want it. You have to see it as reality. You have to know that it's possible. It's not something that you're just going to try for. You have to be certain that it's something you're going to achieve.
Basically, you're fixed. It's over. Whatever was wrong, it's not wrong anymore. Whatever was broken, it was never broken. You don't think about it as it was broken and then fixed. Okay, so that's the wrong kind of mentality. You think about it as it was never broken. It was
Right.
always as it is. It was always perfectly fine. There's no
But
problem.
that might be too big of a leap. Speaking from personal experience, I believed I was not going to stay in the same state forever. I knew that I could recover. My recovery might have been shorter if I had a stronger belief that I had never been ill to begin with, but that is a huge leap for a lot of people to make. But
It is.
if you wake up one day and you find that you're having some major health situation, at the very least, know that you are not condemned. You're not doomed to it. Believe that you can fix it. It might make your recovery longer and possibly more painful, but it is a realistic starting ground for self regeneration and self healing. It's realistic. Just believe that you are not stuck that way. That's a realistic place for most people to start. And you can get good results if you just stick with it.
And
It's
again,
very
a
realistic.
reminder that, the scrolling banner on the bottom of the screen here, this is not health advice. This is not personal advice. This is just simply our opinions that we're expressing here on this show tonight. So the banner says it all.
Dude, thank you, Liminal, for that is beautifully put, and that's
It would be amazing if we all were immediately to access the mind state where we were never ill and do what those energy workers allegedly did in that video. But,
May I say, Liminal, that I have already done this. And
oh,
the reason why one of the things that I required surgery for is gone. I mean, it's gone.
well,
I've done all the medical
now.
checks.
Did you meditate when you did what did you have any particular take us into your huh?
It took me about a year.
and it took me about a year to do most of my recovery. I want to say after the first time you can prove to yourself that you're capable of healing yourself, the next time it's a lot easier to access the state of mind where you were never unhealthy, that you are healthy, and that recovery can be faster if should another incident happen. Again, these are just our personal experience. It's not medical advice, but
Right. What I can say
we're
is,
not the
and
only
this is
people
gonna
that have gone
sound,
through this.
this is gonna sound wild, but imagine you can jump from one reality to another. Imagine you can leap from this reality where maybe you have an injury into one that it never happened. This is something that we've actually done. Now, I'm not going to support that claim with evidence because it's impossible to provide evidence due to the fact of the nature of time and flow of this cosmos. So, the aether is quite constrictive. I cannot change the entire matrix assembly of all node points in order to provide evidence for this claim, unfortunately. But, we'll say this much. If you know what you want, if you know exactly what you want, and you can focus on it intentfully, intentionally, and willfully, then, well, you've got this tremendous possibility of doing something really fantastic, which is actually creating an outcome in this space and time through your interaction with this space and time, where you get exactly what it was that you were hoping for.
Jeremiah, dude, that was. Oh man, I love what you just said. That was profound. That was absolutely profound.
I
Truly.
did not know where that came from.
You sourced it.
That was from your soul. The deeper parts of your soul.
Well, it's all up to you guys now. I think I'm gonna take a break for a minute or two.
He just dropped the
No
mic. I
worries.
love it. He like drops the mic and just bounces. That's perfect. You just went out with like on the highest frequency right there. You can't top that. And Liminal with her amazing information. Thank you guys for dropping in and dropping gold goblets.
Right? Knowledge, eternal knowledge, really, and wisdom. And I kept my mouth shut, but I will share my own stories of all of that with energy healing and the power of belief that I have experienced and gone through in my life at another time. But thank you both for sharing yours right now. And we are looking at some Antiquitech that shows what seems to be a merger of, well, church and priest with technology and soul. And these, I believe, are Orthodox priests from Russia. No, I guess it wouldn't be pre-communism, but surviving during communism. And pretty interesting stuff. Oh, that's China. But yeah, I think it was one of these that it was a video of that Jeremiah referenced earlier. Sadly, I don't have the video available to play to show, but where they glow. Like, what the heck? I guess that's a teen or a kid, but that's a big
I'm still looking for that glowing disc video where they have the rotating circular disc that's being powered by what you can clearly hear in the video is a geared drill, like a battery powered, cordless drill. And it's glowing in the video at, and around the surface of the disc and the edge. So you mentioned that you may have seen that video in the past. It was from the Keshe Foundation. I'm still looking.
Yeah, I gotta get that. I know it was in one of the Knowledge Seeker workshops. I'm just.
I need the information about that and the video clip.
We got a megaphone or the phone thing.
Nevertheless, I've got to have it.
Yeah, hopefully I'm able to get Mehran on for an interview here, and in my next email with them, I will specifically request video of that if they know what day or time or have access to the clip.
Well, listen to this clip of the video here, the live stream, as many times as I need to in order to establish what the description of that clip is. So again, it's a shaft that's connected to a disc that is glowing around the edges of that disc. You can hear the sound of a power drill. The background is blurry. The disc is in focus. Part of the shaft is out of focus.
Yeah, I know which one you speak of. It's probably in somewhere between the Keshe Knowledge Seeker episode 75 and like 100, but that's literally like
it contained comics that were being perturbated by some kind of gravitational isotope, and apparently some part of the process that they use in the electrolysis function were generating these types of materials, these highly charged monopolar materials, and I guess during rotation they generated what we would call a geometrically amplified relativistic field, as coined by the genius Richard Van Durick. So a relativistically amplified geometric field is a field in which the electric potential becomes greater along the direction of acceleration for all electric charges and weaker along the reverse direction of those same electric charges, meaning that we actually have a rotating electric field that does not have a magnetic component per se, but in fact generates this electric potential rotating as what is classically known by many of your viewers, almost all your viewers, as a torsion field.
Wait, sorry. Can you go back, Bernie, to that tablet thing? I wanted to see it. Okay. Sorry, Jeremiah.
Right? Like, is this?
Is that in a museum? Like, is that
No, I believe so.
the gold tablet? What's it go? Akhman Ra?
Yep.
Okay. Wanted to look into that.
All right, like that.
Wait, can you zoom out a little bit? Okay. Thanks.
Life under the moon from the Egyptian moon god Khonshu. Interesting.
Okay, sorry, Jeremiah. Sorry for interrupting. You were talking about Kish.
Oh, I was
Kishy.
just asking Bernie to finally deliver some information that he has not been able to find yet, but I'm trying to push him towards finding it.
Lead me to the wall top.
It's like a couple hundred of hours worth of videos I gotta watch to find it. So
He spoke at the conferences I do, but have you talked to? Have you ever done a show with him?
I've done a couple, like joined his Zooms and stuff, and recently went on like a month ago, and he had agreed to do an interview with me, but the email he gave me when I emailed it blocked me. Like the server for some reason was like, nope, you're rejected, and haven't been able to get a hold of him since. So I'm gonna have to join another one of their Zooms to get back on and talk to him.
I heard he has a bodyguard. I heard he's like terrified to travel and he has a bodyguard.
Oh yeah. Especially to America. I think the last time he came to North America, it was to Canada, and they tried to like arrest him on some like trumped up charges.
Anything to slow you down.
It's just crazy how like the really gifted ones are the ones that have these like profound inventions that can help humanity, how they're treated. It's embarrassing. Like, really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the way it's always been for us. We play on the edge of what we know is dangerous territory. We understand that oil tycoons, energy companies, these kinds of corporate entities, they control the economy. I mean, think about it this way. Over 20% of the entire American economy is energy. That's natural gas and electricity. That's a pretty large percentage, and at this point, I believe it may actually be larger after the whole...
You're answering the question. We're like, why hide Tartaria? Like, it's like a huge answer of like another reason why I think we, or at least for me, gravitate towards the Tartarian information of like, oh, wow, like there's a way to combat this. There's hope. It wasn't always like this.
Well, there's always hope. And that's the thing is like, if we only realize where this comes from, suddenly the barrier to entry becomes insignificant. We realize that we've always had this ability to tap in to these various energy sources. It's not particularly difficult. The right antenna designs, the right geometry of spikes and points at a high altitude on an insulating system will allow us to tap atmospheric electricity. And with oscillation, As Tesla proposed in the Wardenclyffe system, we can tap into massive amounts of that electricity and even draw it down from the ionosphere, as I've demonstrated in other examples previously through experimentation and in my lab. So
you just gotta work on developing and get it out.
it's just a matter of us as a species wanting to do it. Now, there are reciprocations and there are consequences for doing this type of energy generation method. We will disrupt current systems to some extent. There's a very large amount of radio noise generated by tapping the atmospheric ionosphere. So I just want to point out that if we do it, we're going to be disrupting lots of long-range signals, even some of which come from satellites. We will have to compensate, and we will have to harden other systems, including adaptation of current satellites and microsats, and in distribution of Wi-Fi and long-range telecommunications, because we'll be drawing power from the Earth circuit instead of drawing it from burning fossil fuels, which are very localized.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's never thought of that. That's a decent amount of issues to overcome, but sure, it's could be done and definitely worth it if we can power the world. And
it is worth it. And honestly, it's one of those situations where we need to figure out how we can actually do this in a large scale, because this is free. The power that we can tap will be replenished as fast as it is used by the sun circuit. The only reason why charged particles coming from solar emissions, coronal mass ejections, and the general drift of high energy particles coming from our local heat source and light source, the sun, are not entering the atmosphere is because there is a charge built up in our ionosphere and in the mesosphere and in the various layers of the atmosphere. So with all these things combined, what we end up seeing is that the total amount of charge repelling other possible particles that could enter into the Earth circuit available for energy extraction are being decreased. However, we can augment that, because as we draw more power from the ionosphere circuit through the Tesla method based on Wardenclyffe's design, what we end up doing is decreasing the local potential in a certain area, which draws down more energetic particles, which are positively charged from the solar circuit. And that will inevitably end up replenishing itself as fast as we use it. So right now we end up having roughly about 700,000 volts at about 400,000 amps in the Earth circuit, according to the calculations of Richard Feynman's students when he asked them to try and use the data currently available at his time.
Wait, Bernie, can you go back like 3 pictures to that star fort? That was incredible.
right,
Like, oh my God, sorry. Oh, that's wonderful. That's like the most beautiful picture I've seen in a long time.
That's fantastic.
the scale is absolutely insane.
And see how like imagine things planted specific, like terraformed and planted.
Exactly, right? Possible water wheels set up there, water cascading down, water pumped to the center, and then it's just like water power everywhere and agriculture.
Okay,
That's
sorry, I
another
just wanted to
one.
see that. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No lines on the power poles. This is supposedly Kansas City and getting dug out. Like, why? There's mud up to the roof. Like, it just.
Wait, go back to the pyramids, all the pyramids. Oh, wow. Look how close they're all together.
Nothing to see there.
Right. like a lot of these the things that are being found, like rainforest. Have you seen that? The lidar?
Oh yeah, it's insane what they're finding in Central South America right now. Oh, what are they doing here? What you got going on there, bud? Interesting.
Does anyone know where that's at? Yeah, sorry for interrupting, Jeremiah.
I like.
That Starfort, I didn't. If I didn't say anything, it was like, oh, I need you to stop there.
So this right here is part of the Great Wall of Star Forts, which I've also dubbed the Great Wall of Tartaria, and it literally runs for over 1,000 kilometers, possibly 2 or 3. But there's an actual star fort. It's not in this picture, but every couple of miles along this 1,000-mile wall, it runs from the entrance of the Dnieper River, currently where the Ukraine frontline war is, all the way or halfway up the Dnieper towards Kiev, and then east from the Dnieper across eastern Ukraine, entering into Russian Siberia, and then all the way across Russian Siberia up into the it meets the Siberian Arctic Ocean, which used to be known as the Sea of Tartaria. And it's exponentially bigger than the Great Wall of China, yet never talked about, not even documented when it was built or who built it. Fascinating stuff. Not too many people know about it. Got to do a show just on that.
Yeah, seriously. It's over 1,000 what? That
Kilometers, possibly miles. I forget what I had it set on when I was tracking it on Google Earth, but there's several researchers that have connected different parts of it. Shout out to Olaf the Sverker, the first YouTuber I saw covering it and spending time researching it and finding different segments of it. But yeah, it's crazy. If it seems that at some point it was a complete wall. Now there seems to be a couple of gaps in it, but it pretty much runs from the Black Sea all the way through Ukraine, through Russia, up to the
whoa! It's got to be carrying the water from the Black Sea.
Yeah, it connects to the Siberian Arctic Sea as well.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
Right. I believe I got another picture of.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to see.
Oh, pyramid I've never seen before. Interesting. Magic squares are very interesting stuff.
The only curriculum everyone should be taught in school, right? Like for math.
Who is she? Interesting. She also got the spiral thingies.
Yeah, I want like a Lady Delche like headpiece.
Yeah, very Lady Delche style there. It's all the different African kings and Asian kings have had these crowns of several layers. Find that fascinating. Like, that's gotta be for atmospheric charge.
Oh, wow. Wow. What?
Yeah, it's an animatron. Not a robot, animatron, they call them. Holy, how deep she go? Interesting. Look at that. Has to be.
Oh, wow. That's real.
This is real.
And see how at the center of it, where it has like a bell, like I feel like there was bells that were played that radiated out. Oh my gosh, that one's beautiful. That is, oh, I want to go there.
Right? Like one of the few surviving. And like, how is that defensive? Like, what the heck could that have possibly been used for? Image with skull. All right. Not sure what the heck that be. Giant's grave. Like,
That looks crazy creepy though.
definitely. Like, this is a real picture. Like, who built these and why? Definitely wasn't these guys. For what functionality, right? Like, there has to be functionality.
Like, yeah, rocking certain symbols too on your clothing. Like,
Yeah, right? Like, that's gold foil with the symbols.
with intention on certain meridians in your, yeah, it's just, oof. What's in the bag? What's in the bag?
Right? Like,
You can make an entire movie on just theorizing what you think it is, what it symbolizes, what it was used
what sort
for.
of drops they were making in the bags? Demigod bag drops. What is
That's
this?
toilet paper machine? What is that?
Oh, I think that would generate electricity, like almost a type of Wilmhurst, but different. Like the static off the rock or the glass, and then the metal orbs, and then probably have a spark through there, I'm guessing. Not sure. Very interesting.
You could ring my bell.
Deal. What is that? Are those Christmas lights?
I feel like that's a plant.
I want to grow one of them. Find me a seed.
Remember, there's a plant that they say, what codex, what book was it in? Like it gives you like eternal life and it's found at the bottom of like the sea. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think so. Maybe not. No,
And there's a lot of dispute over what plant that is. Like there's a lot of arguments and over what it was.
What is this rock depicting? Fascinating stuff. It's more like technology. And if there was a vapor canopy and the amount of lightning we have in lightning storms today, if that was everywhere, or like you had a charged ionized atmosphere, what
if the cathedrals was a way to make like to affect the atmosphere and to affect it to make us smaller? Like we're like, oh, they're acoustical healing places. What if it by gathering it caused things to shift?
could be? Who the heck would ring that bell? Why and how? Just astounding. There used to be giant bells in all of the gates of every city, maybe? I don't know. Another one. Digging down. Yeah, that's Dresden, I believe, before the war.
Whoa. And that was one of them that were destroyed?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we should do a Dresden deep dive one night.
Double deal. Been meaning to do it, so yes, we shall. And like, that's not coincidence. That's electricity dealings right there. These ones fascinate me.
I know they say it's fake, but it's like, what if that was an ancient way to FaceTime each other? Like if we, we had vertical parking garages, if we were much more advanced, what if we had a pantelegraph, we had a fax machine in the 1800s? What if that was like a way to like FaceTime the dead or to FaceTime from a long distance? Like,
exactly. Like, what if we exist as electrical plasma, but all of our current technology and electrical design is designed to intentionally interfere with what is natural and natural electrical life existence potentially.
like with those goggles that what was it, cyanide? It starts with a C. Like that they would put it, then you would put it in the goggles and
Cyan or cobalt?
cyanide, and you could be able to see the unseen. And then they outlawed it. It just like if there are things around us that you can't see with your eyes, but with certain modalities, like it's not too far out there to see a spirit machine like that.
Absolutely. The red blue, especially, I think. Just so strange. Here we go. Why would you be selling these at an industrial exposition unless they had function and purpose?
And is that in one of the crystal palaces, like where it was all glass?
Believe and I believe from a World's Fair as well. Could have been the London Crystal Palace. I think there was a World's Fair there. Might be what that's from. I have to check where I got that picture from. Right? Like they're everywhere. These poles make no sense whatsoever. Uh, if they're touching and holding it, that can't be the sun.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh my God. Dude, I don't know, man. That just gets me in my heart and my soul. Just looking at it.
Right?
It
Like,
just
we got to travel to some of these and experience the energy in there, because I guarantee you're going to feel something completely different than the chaotic, hectic mess that is the urban sprawl nightmare of the cities we live in today. Probably just peace and tranquility. Oh, that's pretty pyramidal. Somewhere in Russia.
I always love that one. That's in
Netherlands, or
yeah, it's in the Netherlands.
suspect, could be wrong. This could also be Dresden.
Whoa. Dresden deep dive.
Giant book. In a cloak. You got to be cloaked to access the giant books. This is so similar to the Forbidden City in China, but I believe Cambodia we're looking
Yeah,
at.
or like Forbidden Cities, the eastern version of Star Forts.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Star cities. They're not just forts, they're whole cities. There's your Amazonian warrior. Warrioress.
Yeah.
Like,
It reminded me of like Wonder Woman. Did you see the Wonder Woman where they all were like doing like Olympics on an island? Just a bunch of warrioresses.
Yep.
Just being sexy and being warriors. Like that's what the kind of a similar image that I get with like Calafia. And they said they were like Amazonian women. I'm like, where were the guys? Did they have? I want to know details. Like, was there just 3 of them? Like, that because it's all woman like society, but they had to have had a little bit of men for them to keep producing. I wonder like how that worked, what that setup was like, or yeah.
They kidnapped Fry and made him perform more snoo.
Like, what if they just had one guy like that? They all I don't know. I want
either a lucky guy or a slow guy. Alba Witch Wiggler, that's funny. So I didn't see your comment, but on the same thought path of death by snoo. For those that don't know what we're talking about, Futurama episode. But look at it. So why are all the old photos that have like giants have weird elongated giant crowns on or hats on of some sort? Both men and women. Very strange. Up, man. See, man. So this right here, it's like, is that for agriculture? Like, did they put plants in there potentially and aeroponic if you had water coming out from the center and it kept pouring down and down and down? Maybe. I don't know. How would you feel about these guys leading your Easter sermon? Because in 1 week's time, that's what they do in the Eastern Orthodox.
I'm trying to think if he opened up a portal for me, would I enter it? Like, would I be impressed enough with his abilities? Would I walk through? Do I trust him?
Depends if there's a happy smile or a creepy smile on his face. That'd determine me. Like this guy, I wouldn't trust him. This guy, maybe.
Yeah, the guy sitting down, I kind of feel like I might be able to trust him. The other 2, I'm not so sure.
Right? I don't even know this guy's human. Again, in the Amazon, more and more pyramid cities being found. Underground railway somewhere. I like old Russian photos of.
Dave Martin said, a little trim, they could be YouTubers. Not even, they don't even have to trim. To be YouTuber, they could leave the beard. It would give them an edge. It'll make them more believable.
Like, what are these antenna-like things going off of her head as well? And I wonder, like, all of the cloth and the feathers and the fur that we're seeing on a lot of these royals and these priests and shamans and stuff, is it for generating static electricity to charge their gold jewelry crowns and, you know, antiquitech, their royal treasures? I forget where this is from, but it's a really old, several hundred-year-old book. And we got a guy playing with a Schumann resonant the antenna connected to a what looks like power box of some sort. Very, very fascinating and suspect right there. Don't quite know what to make of that.
Yeah, it reminds me of the cathedral drawing on the, on the ground.
Yeah, they also have that. So for those that don't know, it's this exact pattern or array that you can. I should just look it up. But the Schumann resonance, you can get these Schumann resonance generators now, and that's exactly what their antenna array looks like. The pattern of it, or the circuit, is that.
Oh my God, is it 3:08 in the morning? Oh my God.
Oh my God, it's 4:08 here. Oh dear. And we're 2 hours in, so I guess that's a good time, good place to wrap this all up.
I thought I was seeing things. I'm like, no way. Well, thanks
Yahweh.
everyone for spending a holiday with me.
And me, and Jeremiah, and Liminal. Thank you all for being here, and wish you all a happy, blessed Easter, or Easter dinner if you haven't had it yet. Back Wednesday, I guess. Any final words? Final thoughts?
Happy Easter. I love you all. And try not to be too harsh on yourself this next week. All right. Just feel everything through. Just connect. Go easy on yourself, easy on your thoughts. And when things that are coming up within you, try to address it head on. And yeah.
Well
I hope
said,
that made
Steve.
sense.
I absolutely did. Love it. Love you, and love you all. Thank you, and see you on the next one. Ta-ta.
You crazy mother. Yeah.
It's just BurnEye. BurnEye. Hey, BurnEye just like last week, huh?